Have you ever noticed that in every argument, the calmest person is often the one with the power? It's not the one who talks the most, nor the one with the strongest reasoning, but the one who knows when to remain silent. They let the other person reveal their weaknesses, expose their contradictions, and diminish their own credibility. While others shout, try to prove their point, or repeat the same arguments over and over, the composed person simply stands, observes, and maintains order within their mind. And the remarkable thing happens. Power naturally leans toward them without having to say much. Imagine a forest fire. The more oxygen you blow into it, the fiercer it burns. But if you remove the oxygen, the fire naturally dies out. In an argument, it's the same. The more you explain, justify, or try to convince, the more you give power to the other person's emotional fire. On the other hand, if you remain calm and choose silence, you are cutting off the oxygen, causing them to lose control on their own. Or imagine a chess player. He does not rush his moves nor react to every small play. He observes, analyzes, and lets his opponent reveal weaknesses before making the precise move. It is this strategic silence that confuses the opponent, disrupts their balance, and puts you in control. In this video, we will explore 8 highly effective secrets to win any argument without having to speak much. From staying calm, asking sharp questions, using silence, agreeing with the truth, then guiding the conversation, to knowing when to stop and retreat at the right moment. Each secret is based on ancient Stoic philosophy combined with practical examples, so you not only win the argument, but also maintain absolute power and confidence. Secret 1. Stay calm when your opponent loses control. In most arguments, many people believe that victory goes to whoever talks more, presents sharper reasoning, or overwhelms the other with the loudest voice. But the truth is, winning does not come from words, but from how you control yourself when emotions dominate your opponent. When others lose their composure, when they let emotions override reason, they weaken their own arguments. At that moment, your ability to remain calm becomes the decisive strength. The calm person does not rush to react, nor get pulled into chaotic emotions, but observes, analyzes, and chooses the precise moment to respond. Stoic philosophy from Marcus Aurelius teaches, you have power over your mind, not outside events. When you understand this, you realize that staying calm not only protects yourself, but also serves as a way to take control of the argument. Here's the story of James, an office employee. In a tense meeting, James's colleague kept yelling, making accusations, and trying to pull him into an emotional whirlwind. Instead of reacting or trying to prove he was right, James simply listened. He did not flinch, did not scoff, and did not rush to respond. When his colleague ran out of words and gradually lost composure, James calmly and gently shared his perspective. The result was that the entire meeting agreed with James. Not because he had more arguments, but because he maintained control over his emotions, while his opponent appeared out of control. To apply this secret, first pause before responding. When feelings of anger or frustration rise, take a deep breath and remind yourself that you do not need to be swept into that emotional storm. Second, lower your voice when speaking. When others are shouting, responding in a calm tone makes them appear even more out of control. Finally, observe and let them exhaust themselves. The more your opponent loses composure, the more their weaknesses are revealed, and all you need to do is stand firm. This secret proves that the winner is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who remains calm. In every argument, composure is the strongest weapon. It exposes your opponent's weaknesses, shows the audience who is trustworthy, and most importantly, allows you to win without having to say too much. Secret 2. Ask sharp questions instead of defending yourself. In an argument, most people's natural reaction is to defend their point, explain their reasons, or prove that they are right. But this is a fatal mistake. When you try to justify yourself too much, you lose control of the conversation. Instead, you are simply reacting to your opponent's attack. The secret of winning an argument is to make your opponent reveal their weaknesses without directly attacking them. And the most powerful way to do this is by asking sharp, incisive questions. A person who knows how to ask questions forces their opponent to answer and reveal contradictions or gaps in their reasoning. Instead of confronting them directly, you make them explain, justify, and inadvertently make things difficult for themselves. This is not a trick, but an art, allowing your opponent to expose weaknesses they do not even realize. The more they speak to prove their point, the more contradictions they reveal, and their strength gradually diminishes. Stoic philosophy from Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the closer a person is to calmness, the closer they are to strength. A calm mind combined with a well-timed question will confuse your opponent. You do not need to prove anything. You simply guide them into a line of thinking they are unprepared for, forcing them to examine their own logic. The more they struggle to explain, the more their arguments reveal weaknesses, and all you need to do is stand there, calm and observant. Daniel, an employee, was debating a colleague about the feasibility of a project. Instead of directly rebutting, Daniel asked, "What makes you think this approach won't work?" His colleague had to explain in detail. When Daniel followed up with, "How is this different from similar projects in the past?" the colleague immediately became flustered, had to adjust their explanation, and gradually admitted the limitations in their viewpoint. While Daniel remained calm, his opponent revealed their own weaknesses and lost the argument. To apply this secret, first, stay calm and do not rush to react. Second, ask precise and skillful questions that force them to answer in detail. Third, do not explain or defend yourself. Let them contradict themselves. When practiced, you will see that the questioner controls the conversation, and sometimes you win simply because they reveal their own mistakes without you having to say much. Secret 3, use silence to make them doubt themselves. In an argument, many people believe that speaking more, constantly explaining, or refuting every point is the only way to win. But the truth is completely the opposite. Silence is a powerful weapon, sometimes even stronger than any argument. When you remain silent, your opponent has nothing to cling to. They begin to doubt themselves, reveal gaps in their reasoning, and diminish their own credibility. Silence is not cowardice or giving up. It is a way to control the entire situation without having to speak much. Stoic philosophy from Epictetus emphasizes, consider silence the goal unless speaking adds more value. When you choose silence, you force your opponent to face their own thoughts. They expect a reaction, expect resistance, but when they do not receive it, they feel unsettled. That unease creates a psychological gap, making them ask themselves, am I wrong? Am I talking too much? What have I missed? And at that moment, the power fully shifts to you. Alex, an employee, was in a tense debate with a colleague. His colleague yelled, repeated arguments, and tried to pull Alex into an emotional whirlwind. Instead of reacting, Alex remained silent. He did not interrupt, explain, or show any reaction. At first, his colleague was confused, then began repeating old arguments, trying to convince themselves and those around them. When Alex finally spoke, his colleague had already undermined their own argument without Alex having to say much. Silence made them doubt themselves and reveal their weaknesses. To apply this secret, first, do not react immediately. Stay calm and allow the silence to exist. Second, use eye contact and a composed demeanor. Sometimes silence paired with a steady gaze creates stronger psychological pressure than words. Third, observe and let them expose their own contradictions. You do not need to remind or refute. Just let them talk too much and reveal their weaknesses. This secret illustrates a Stoic principle. Silence is not surrender, but power. It causes your opponent to lose control and doubt themselves. While you remain calm, maintain the initiative, and gain the upper hand without having to say much. Secret 4, agree with the truth, then redirect. One of the smartest ways to win an argument without saying much is to first acknowledge the truth before steering the conversation. Many people think that debating means opposing every point their opponent makes. They fear that agreeing will make them lose face or appear weak. But in reality, partially agreeing with your opponent does not weaken you. It allows you to control the entire discussion. By acknowledging the valid points, you break down their defenses, lower their guard, and create an opportunity to guide the argument in your direction. Stoic philosophy emphasizes, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Agreeing with the valid points of your opponent is not a concession, but a way to use reason to stay calm and control the situation. When you acknowledge some reasonable points, your opponent feels heard and automatically reduces their attacking energy, while you maintain your position and guide the argument according to your own logic. Here's the story of Sarah, an employee debating with a colleague about project strategy. Her colleague continuously challenged her ideas, pressing her to justify every detail. Instead of arguing point by point, Sarah said, "You're right that optimizing the process is important, and I completely agree on that." Immediately, her colleague's attitude changed. They felt respected and heard, no longer defensive. Sarah then gently redirected the conversation. So if we combine this approach with another method, we can be both efficient and ensure quality. With this approach, Sarah maintained control without engaging in a fierce battle. To apply this secret, first identify a point of agreement in your opponent's argument. It doesn't need to be everything. Just one reasonable detail is enough. Second, acknowledge it verbally. A simple statement like, "I agree with this part," will lower their guard. Third, redirect the discussion toward your perspective by guiding it gently and skillfully. When you do this, your opponent naturally follows the direction you want, while still feeling respected. This secret illustrates a Stoic principle. Winning an argument is not always about speaking loudly, but through skill, calmness, and the ability to guide with logic, creating an advantage that your opponent does not even realize. Secret 5. Let your opponent put themselves in a difficult position. One of the least recognized but most effective secrets in an argument is to let your opponent reveal their own weaknesses instead of attacking them directly. Most people, when debating, try to prove their point, explain, justify, or refute. But calm and intelligent individuals know that the more the opponent talks, the more they expose contradictions, logical gaps, and weaknesses they don't even realize. All you need to do is stand firm, stay calm, and let them dismantle their own argument. Stoic philosophy from Zeno of Citium emphasizes, it is better to stumble with your feet than with your words. When you step out of the emotional storm, you do not need to fight directly. Instead, you let your opponent's own words work against them. The more they try to prove themselves, the more they justify, the more their arguments reveal gaps. The more they speak, the more they fall into the trap you have set, the trap of self-destruction through their own words. Eric was debating a colleague about the feasibility of a project. When his colleague presented contradictory arguments, instead of directly refuting them, Eric gently asked, "Could you explain this part further? And how is this different from similar projects in the past?" His colleague had to think, struggled to justify themselves, and gradually revealed contradictions in their reasoning. In the end, they undermined their own credibility in front of everyone in the room, while Eric did not have to argue excessively. To apply this secret in real life, first stay calm and do not react hastily. Second, listen carefully and focus on observing potential weaknesses in your opponent's reasoning. Third, use skillful questions to let them answer and reveal their own contradictions. You don't need to speak much or refute aggressively. Just let them fall into the trap themselves. This secret illustrates an important Stoic principle. Victory does not come from direct attack, but from patience, observation, and using your opponent's own self-exposure to gain the upper hand. When applied skillfully, you will see that sometimes simply remaining silent and asking the right questions is enough to win without saying another word. Secret 6. Don't fall into the emotional trap. Maintain distance. In any argument, one of the most dangerous traps is letting emotions dictate your actions. Many people believe that winning a debate requires responding forcefully, proving their point, or refuting every word of their opponent. But intelligent individuals know that losing control of your emotions is the quickest way to lose power. When you fall into the emotional trap, you give your opponent control over the discussion without even realizing it. A person who maintains distance and avoids the emotional trap observes without reacting. They are not pulled into the whirlwind of anger or feelings of injustice. They let their opponent expend energy yelling, getting upset, or trying to prove their point, while they themselves remain calm and in control of the situation. Here is the key. When you do not let emotions dictate your actions, you hold the initiative, while your opponent gradually loses control. Stoic philosophy from Marcus Aurelius emphasizes, the best revenge is not to become like your enemy. Those who try to bring you down through emotions aim to pull you to their level. Anger, frustration, imbalance. But when you remain calm, you stand at a height they cannot reach. The angrier they become, the more they want you to react, the more you demonstrate your inner strength. Kevin, who works in a high-pressure team, had a colleague who continuously tried to provoke him, yelling, using sarcastic remarks, and attempting to elicit a reaction. Instead of responding or getting angry, Kevin remained calm, spoke in a gentle and composed tone, and did not get swept up in emotion. His colleague became confused, lost composure, and ultimately revealed the flaws in their own argument, while Kevin maintained control of the situation. To apply this secret, first identify the emotional trap. When you feel anger, frustration, or the urge to respond immediately, it signals that you are being pulled in. Second, maintain emotional distance. Focus on logic, data, and facts rather than personal feelings. Third, observe and let your opponent expend their energy. The angrier they become, the more they reveal their own weaknesses. This secret demonstrates that in an argument, calmness and distance are power. When you avoid the emotional trap, you not only win logically, but also gain psychological control over your opponent. You become untouchable by manipulation, while your opponent is the one who loses power in their own hands. Secret 7. Speak briefly, then stop. One of the least recognized but most effective secrets in an argument is to say enough, then pause. Many people believe that winning a debate requires explaining every detail, proving their point step by step, or refuting every statement of their opponent. But the truth is, when you speak too much, you inadvertently give your opponent control over the discussion. They will look for gaps, cut your words, or latch onto details to distract. Conversely, when you speak just enough to make a solid point and then remain silent, you force your opponent to manage on their own, reveal weaknesses, and gradually lose control. Stoic philosophy from Epictetus emphasizes, do not explain your philosophy, let it exist in action. This applies perfectly to arguments. When your reasoning is strong enough, you do not need to cram in more words. Calmness and brevity will surprise your opponent and make it difficult for them to counter while also conveying absolute confidence. Remaining silent after speaking is a psychological weapon, forcing them to question themselves, evaluate, and reveal their own contradictions. The more they try to find faults, the more they expose gaps in their reasoning. Here's the story of Jason in a meeting debating the implementation of a new system. His colleagues continuously challenged him, presented arguments, and tried to drag him into a confrontation. Instead of responding point by point, Jason said one short, clear sentence. We can try a 1-week pilot. If it works, we continue. If not, we adjust. Then he stopped. The silence left his colleagues unable to react immediately. They had to work through the logic themselves and gradually accepted Jason's proposal without further argument. One well-chosen sentence, combined with strategic silence, created absolute power. To apply this secret, first identify the main point you want to convey and express it clearly and concisely. Second, stop speaking as soon as you have made your point, avoiding unnecessary details or justifications. Third, observe your opponent's reaction. Let the silence cause them to reveal their weaknesses. By speaking little while maintaining a strong stance, you control the argument while demonstrating confidence and inner power. This secret illustrates a Stoic principle. True power does not lie in long-winded speech, but in the ability to say just enough and remain calm, causing your opponent to reveal their own weaknesses while you maintain control. When practiced skillfully, you will see that sometimes a single concise sentence combined with silence is enough to win the argument without saying another word. Secret 8. Know when to withdraw. Not every argument is worth engaging in. One of the most important secrets to winning without saying much is knowing when to step back. Many people get swept into the emotional storm, trying to prove themselves in every situation, believing that if they don't refute, they will lose. But in reality, sometimes the greatest victory is to skip a futile battle, maintaining calmness and psychological control. When you withdraw at the right moment, you do not lose face. You simply retain your power, allowing your opponent to reveal their true nature. Stoic philosophy from Epictetus emphasizes, you cannot teach a person what they think they already know. If your opponent is unwilling to listen, unwilling to change their viewpoint or debates only to assert power. Continuing to speak will only draw you into the game they control. By knowing when to withdraw, you prevent them from achieving their goal, making you lose your composure, getting swept up in emotion, and forcing you to prove yourself. By refusing to engage, you maintain self-mastery. Ben, an office employee, was continuously harassed by a colleague who enjoyed arguing. They yelled, repeated their points, and tried to pull Ben into an emotional whirlwind. Instead of reacting, Ben chose to pause, nod slightly, and withdraw from the argument. The colleague was left in their anger. No one saw Ben lose composure, and Ben remained in control of the situation. This action left the opponent confused, feeling defeated, and the energy of the argument gradually drained. To apply this secret, first identify the goal of the argument. Is it truly valuable? Second, assess your opponent's attitude and intent. Are they seeking truth or just asserting power? Third, protect your calmness and maintain distance. Withdrawing is not surrender, but preserving your energy and inner power. When you step back at the right moment, you make your opponent impatient, reveal their true nature, and weaken themselves. This secret illustrates a Stoic principle. Success is not always about defeating your opponent with words, but knowing when to remain silent, when to withdraw, and when to let your opponent reveal their own weaknesses. When practiced, you will realize that sometimes walking away is the greatest victory, requiring neither energy nor words. Looking back at the 8 secrets just shared, you will realize an important truth. Winning an argument does not come from talking more, debating aggressively, or proving yourself, but from the ability to control your emotions, stay calm, and use strategic silence. The winner is not the one who shouts, nor the one who fights over every word, but the one who observes, asks sharp questions, lets the opponent reveal contradictions and weaknesses, and knows when to withdraw. When you master yourself, you hold a power that your opponent cannot reach. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that true strength lies in controlling your own mind, not controlling others. When you apply these secrets, staying calm, using silence strategically, asking skillful questions, agreeing with the truth, then guiding the conversation, knowing when to stop speaking, and withdrawing when your opponent won't listen, you not only win the argument, but also maintain psychological power, earn the respect of others, and preserve inner peace. If you found this video helpful, comment "Silence wins all" to show that you are ready to apply these 8 secrets in your life. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next Stoic lessons. When you learn to win arguments without saying much, you not only outmaneuver others, but also master yourself, becoming calm, sharp, and untouchable by anyone's manipulation.